Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm checking out the Holybro Hukiya, and I hope that is how you say it. It's a diversity system for the Fat Shark Dominator lineup of goggles. Now I should say that I have actually been using this system in the last 3 or 4 videos that I've done and I really like it. So it is competing with the LaForge and TrueD system, both of which I don't have, but the Holybro is using the same RX5808 system as many of these diversity modules are using, but at a lower price point, which is good. So this example was sent in by Holybro themselves, but you can buy it on Banggood for about £50, whereas the LaForge system, it costs around £80, which obviously is much more. So up to now I've been using Fat Shark's own diversity solution, which costs around £30, and it's actually been pretty good. For some reason Banggood don't seem to stock it anymore, which is a shame, but you will notice that the Fat Shark system has both of its antennas on one side of the goggle and the Holybro has antennas on either side of the goggle. The Fat Shark module does come with a cover as well, but I've removed it here so that you can see things easier. So the Fat Shark module has just one video receiver, and the module picks which antenna is receiving the strongest signal, whereas the Holybro system has 2 separate video receivers as well as an LED display allowing you to do various things such as auto scan the bands, etc., and I will show you that a little bit later. Now, is one method better than the other? Well, in my conclusion, not really. I struggle to notice the difference between the two, and both solutions are actually pretty good when it comes to video reception. But the difference, of course, is the features that the Holybro system offers compared to the Fat Shark module, which of course doesn't have an LED display. So you are limited to the 8 channels of the particular selected band, which is done via dip switches on the module, and then you have to manually select the channels using the button on the top of the Fat Sharks. So the Hukiya system does away with that button completely, which could be seen as a downside because sometimes changing the channels through the Fat Shark button is convenient. However, the features built into the firmware of the Hukiya more than make up for that, in my opinion. So first of all, I want to talk about how to install the system. It's pretty easy. Of course, we have the 2 modules which click into the spare ports on the Fat Sharks. The main module with the built-in display does overhang out of the goggle slightly, but it stays in securely. I did have to tighten up the nut on the SMA connector to ensure there was no movement of the plastic covers that the system comes with, but that wasn't too much of a problem. And of course the pins on the back of the main module line up with the slots on the goggles, just like any other Dominator module does. You are then given this cable which connects to the other receiver using a JST style connector, and this cable detaches on both sides. Now the instructions give the impression that they want you to take the goggle apart and feed this cable through the middle of the goggle, but that is a complete pain to do. So the simple solution is to just twist the wire around, which then tightens it up, and then it sits at the front of the goggle nice and neatly. Now the second module isn't so easy to fit in place because of the audio jack on the Fat Sharks. I found that I had to completely undo the nut on the SMA connector, which I have to do anyway to get to the connector for the wire, so that's not too much of a problem. And I had to then place the receiver board above the audio jack and hold it in place with a finger while then tightening up the nut to the SMA connector. It is a little fiddly, I will say, but eventually it all clicked into place, and of course you can see that there is no way of using the head tracking system once this is in place because, well, there's no room. If that's important to you, you might want to go with the TrueD system, which has both of the receivers on the other side. So next I want to talk about the antennas that I'm using, and the whole point of diversity is that different antennas give us different video reception results. So my main antenna is going to be the on-way cloverleaf antenna, and I do have two of those. This antenna is really good for close-in flying, as it's non-directional, meaning that if I'm flying the quadcopter in front of myself most of the time, then the signal the antenna can receive in all other directions is going to waste. So this is where the patch antenna comes in. Now I'm using the Menace RC Invader patch antenna here, which is designed for a diversity system. Sadly, I don't have two of these, so on the other goggles I'm using a Ishin patch antenna. So the patch antenna stretches the signal that it can receive, but in doing so it means that it's now only effective in one direction, but for longer distances. So in theory, the diversity system monitors which video receiver is getting the strongest RSSI signal, and then it switches the goggle to that particular receiver, giving you the best of both worlds, having a cloverleaf antenna, which is good for close in and all around video reception, and then if you get further away from yourself, the patch antenna should kick in. So there's a lot I like about the Holybro diversity system, but again there are a couple of trade-offs. The main one is the extra battery consumption. We are now powering two video receivers and a screen, which is going to drain the battery in the Fat Sharks much quicker. But I'm also not keen on the black covers they've provided either, because pretty much all of the Fat Shark Dominator lineup is white, and black can heat up very quickly in the sun, albeit a rare occurrence where I'm from. So these modules won't fit goggles such as the Attitudes either. They are just for the Dominator lineup, so definitely bear that in mind. I also mentioned that the channels don't feed through to the button on the Fat Shark. Other than that, the rest of the features are all pretty positive, and like I say, I really like it. The LED screen on the front is huge, and we have this joystick button on the front to change the options in the firmware. Now, the system boots up in what it calls manual mode. It doesn't boot up on the channel that you last used unless you press the enter button and then go into the setup menu and then select save and exit, and then it saves the last frequency that you are on. I personally would have preferred it to remember the last channel I was on regardless of saving it, but it's a small thing, and I mainly use the same frequency on all of my copters anyway. So in manual mode, I can go through all of the channels and bands by pressing the up and down on the joystick. And then after around 10 to 20 seconds, the LED on the front changes to show your band and channel in big letters, as well as the pilot's name and also which receiver is currently active, which is pretty nice, although only other pilots around you can see this information when you are wearing the goggles, but that might be handy if you're in a race or something like that. Then we have the auto search function, which selects the closest channel with a picture rather than the strongest signal in general. And as I say, once it lands on that channel, if you want it to boot up every time on that channel, you need to go into the save function. So to find the strongest channel, there is a band scanner, which is useful for finding your correct channel first of all, and it's good as well for checking which channels other people are using if you're flying with other people. Then we have the diversity option, which allows you to select either receiver on its own, or auto, which is the diversity system, and that is what the system is for really, but it's nice that you can select either receiver individually if you want to, if you're short of an antenna or something like that. So lastly, we have the setup menu, which gives you the option to change the order of the channels in manual mode. So for example, rather than them being in the order of the band, they can be ordered via frequency instead, but I prefer to have them in channel order myself. So the system is a 48 channel receiver, which is all I'll ever need. Then we have beeps, which is a warning when your battery gets low, so you'll want to keep that on because the battery will drain more quickly with this system, that is for sure. And then we have this option that's called Sign, and this is the pilot's name which appears on the goggle when the menu times out again, probably only useful for people around you if they don't know who you are, etc. Then we have the option to calibrate the RSSI. So this is for the RSSI bars that appear on the goggle on the main screen. So I make sure that the goggle is close to the model while it's turned on to ensure that the goggles calibrate the RSSI at 100%. You can then save and exit, which will save all of these values as well as the currently selected channel as I mentioned before, and that's about it. So now I think it's time to go for a fly and compare the signal from my old Fat Shark antenna diversity module against the Holybro system. Now, honestly, this wasn't really a very scientific test. I'm never good at doing scientific tests. One of the goggles has a different patch antenna, as I mentioned earlier, and one of the goggles is sat on the ground, but hopefully it'll give you an idea. Now, I'm also not flying between objects, so the image is always pretty clear as well. I don't think that flying between objects would favour either system though, because diversity, it's not really going to improve that. The 5.8 frequency in general is pretty poor dealing with passing through objects anyway. But honestly, for me, when it comes to video reception, they were both pretty good, and there were times that either performed better or worse than the other, and I think that is just due to the nature of analog video, where it will always randomly break up no matter what antenna you're using. So my conclusion is that if you want the features such as auto scan and band scanning, then go for the Holybro. But if you want less power consumption and don't mind messing with dip switches and in general being blind on what channel you're on, then the cheaper antenna diversity system still works really well. I think both systems will work better than a single antenna. I should say though that the Fat Shark module wasn't actually that much cheaper either. So like I said earlier, I paid £30 for the Fat Shark module, and then it's about £50 for the Holybro system. So I'm going to be sticking with the Holybro system for now. So I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.